Welcome to Talks with Summer, seeing the world through the eyes of another. Today I have with me Richard Abbott, numerologist, teacher, and guide to the spiritual, cosmic, and mystical dimensions of life. Richard began exploring the unseen world at just 17, studying for more than 2 decades with his mentor Arthur Norris. His work uniquely bridges mathematics and spirituality, helping people understand who they are at their core. A practitioner of tarot, numerology, and palmistry, Richard uses these tools to support self-discovery, empowerment, and healing. He's the author of numerous books and courses, has appeared on TV, radio, and stages across the UK and the USA, and shares his teachings from the Hermitage Development Centre in Northamptonshire, as well as the College of Psychic Studies in London. Welcome, Richard. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, Summer. Nice to see you. Well, where should I begin? I spend all my days talking to people about their numbers and about their spiritual path and often material path through life.
Thank you so much. And I just so that the viewers know, I think the numerology course which I did with you was gave me so much self-awareness. I have dwelled into all the psychic sides and the occult studies a lot, but I was surprised and pleasantly surprised, I would say, that just knowing one number gave me so much self-awareness and so much comfort. I think comfort would be the word which I would describe it as. So I really recommend Richard's courses. So anyway, moving on from there, where did you grow up? Tell us about your childhood days.
Well, yes. So I grew up in 1970s working class England. We were very poor. I know that's a bit of a cliche these days, but we were genuinely very poor. It was a very narrow existence. And I think that's what bred in me this idea, or concentrated in me this idea, that there had to be something more going on. And I was, even from, I think, 13 years old, I was reading about astrology and mystical things. And there was quite a renaissance of all that in England of the time, 70s, 80s, 90s England. There was a lot of this stuff was very active. So I was very interested in it. And then I met the man who became my teacher when I was 17, and I kind of escaped from there, really. But I came from very, very, very ordinary, poor English working class community.
What motivated you to do what you do? Or in other words, how did you take this path in life that you are on now?
Yeah, good question. Well, like I say, I had this sense that there must be something else other than the you go to work, you go to school, you maybe get a qualification, you go to work, you get married, you have children, you retire, and you die. I thought there must be more than that. And that's what got me onto this path in the first place. But if I am truthful, I don't think that I really chose the path. I think the path chose me. That sounds a bit corny, but there were so many instances in my early life which nudged me and pushed me and prodded me towards, you know, the occult book section of the local bookshop, the spiritual development group down the road. It was all. I didn't plan any of it. I couldn't have consciously planned any of it. I was just nudged to where I needed to be. I don't think I had a choice. I think the path chose me, really.
I think I've thought about that always too, because of the various guests I have interviewed and in terms of the path that they take. And also myself, that circumstances in life happen which almost compel you to go towards that certain path. Because I very strongly believe that things were all perfect and flowers and everything. So probably the inclination towards this side would be a little lesser. Do you feel there's some truth to that?
if your beginnings in life are smooth and your course through life is relatively smooth, there would be no need to seek out any of this stuff. It is only if the beginnings of your life or your path were hard that you would even trouble to begin in the first place. And the only reason that I continued was because what I was finding was so accurate and so meaningful and so helpful. And particularly the numerology, it spoke to me in a way. We would call it resonance now. It had a resonance. We didn't use that word then. But it spoke to me in such a way that it demanded that I look further into it.
So tell us a lot more about numerology. How would you explain it to someone completely new? Because I'm sure there's so many people listening, and there's people who are doubtful, and there's people who don't know much, and then there's people who do have an idea. I was someone who was very neutral about it. I was just curious, and it's been pretty life-changing to me that I would say, correct me if I'm wrong, but I felt that I could understand so much more about myself in a simpler way.
Absolutely, no correction at all there. Numerology is the source code of life. Numbers are the source code of life. Numerology is the way that we understand those numbers. It is the least woo and the least strange of all of the esoteric, mystical, spiritual disciplines. But it is extremely deep and extremely profound. But also it deals with our life on a very practical level as well. Anybody that's ever had any involvement with numbers, say through their job, knows that if you work with numbers enough, you see patterns. And it's not coincidence. It's not a coincidence. And numerology just says, okay, it's not a coincidence. Now here's why it's not a coincidence. And it's the study of all of that. It's not the only discipline. Other disciplines are available. Other practices are available. But to me, numerology is the source code of life, and therefore the foundation of everything. But particularly, as you say, knowing yourself. It's so valuable for knowing thyself, which is like the key of everything.
It made me think a little bit from what you just said a little while back, like numerology is the code and there's patterns. But I almost feel like our entire life is like that in a certain way, that we are compelled to go to places, we are compelled to situations, we feel like we have the free will and we're doing it. If you look at it from another side, I know reality is multifaceted, we can look at it from many angles, but in a certain light, the numbers that I would have attracted in my life, my apartments, my home, my friends' birthdays, there's a lot less control I had in it than I think I do. So that's something which came to my mind as you were talking about it.
There is a code, and numerology enables us to understand the code. And when you understand the code, you see that many things in your life that up to that point were not random. I mean, it definitely weren't random. There's no such thing as random. They were not random, and there was meaning and purpose and pattern to them. There's no doubt about that at all.
So another question which came to my mind is that we're talking about occult and we are talking about esoteric subjects, but as I've dwelled more into numerology and I talked to you, it seems like numerology seems more tangible than the other sciences. So I'm curious what you think about it, because we have the facts and the numbers and the proof in front of us.
I would say that numerology, numbers, is the underpinning of all of the other sciences, all of the other mystic arts and sciences. That's not to say that they aren't valuable in their own right. Astrology, for example, Vedic or Western, very valuable, very interesting, very, very useful, very meaningful, can get a lot from it. But I think that numerology is the scaffolding It's the framework of the building that is built upon by all those other disciplines. So if you know the framework, if you understand the blueprint, if you like, then you can understand the rest very easily.
What's the common misconception people have about numerology?
I mean, some people will say, okay, it's a science. They'll say it's a method, it's a science, and that doesn't leave any room for intuition or anything magical. That's not right. It's half method, half science and method, half intuition. To really know the numbers well, to do the numerology properly, there is an intuitive dimension. It's not solely intuitive. It's not make it up as you go. There are rules, but it's an art and it's a science. It is both. It is both of these things. Some people are skeptical about numerology, particularly when we talk about dates of birth, dates in the calendar, because they'll say, yeah, but the calendar is just made up. You know, what calendar are we talking about? The Gregorian calendar, the Julian calendar. We're talking about the Islamic calendar, the solar calendar, Hebrew lunar calendar. What are we talking about, they'll say. And the answer to that is that whatever calendar you're operating in is the one that is true. So the calendar provides the framework that you work your numbers on. And there are different calendars and there are different frameworks. And that's okay because they all point in the same direction.
Yes. I often wondered because I grew up in India and now I live in the US, and I used to think technically my birthday is one day before. So Would I be a different date or would I be the same date that I was in India?
Yep.
So can you talk a little bit more about that for our listeners?
Yeah. So basically the calendar that you're living in is the one which will be operative for you. So for example, it is, I can't remember the exact year, but if you are living in Bangkok now, it's not 2025. It's, I can't remember, Google it up, 2956, the year 2956. If you're living in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, it's not 2025, it's 1486 or something like that. And so these are true when you're in there, because numbers are energy. And when you're in that energy, then you're moved by that number.
Can numerology be used for personal growth and healing?
Very much so. You could definitely use numerology for character analysis, selecting the right place to live, selecting the right employee, the right girlfriend, the right boyfriend, dates of marriage, dates of launching a business. You can certainly use it to some extent to predict events. It is workable for that. But its core purpose is to enable you to know yourself better. And if you know yourself better, then you will be able to operate in alignment with yourself, with your true self. And that is healing. Otherwise, we're just talking about symptoms. If we're talking about deep healing, it's about alignment with who we really are. And numerology is a prime tool for working that out.
So one of the questions which came to my mind was that I know because I read your profile and you're also into tarot and palmistry. So my question was, I was thinking about it, that as someone who's trying to be more aware of all the esoteric sciences and all the mystic studies, but one of the things which came to my mind is that it won't be possible for a person to keep everything, all the information in mind when they make a life decision. For example, if I have an astrology reading and someone tells me this moon sign is very compatible to you, And then I take a numerology reading, and then I find out that a certain number would be very compatible to me. And then I move on to tarot and so on. So in a certain light, it would get a little difficult to merge all of this information and then proceed from there. So I'm trying to sort of imagine that situation, and I wanted to know your thoughts on that. How would someone navigate that? Because it could end up being, like they say, paralysis by analysis.
Yeah, it could. Good observation. Yes, this is what you should not do, but it is what some people do. All of the disciplines, if they are being done right, will all point in the same direction, broadly. They will broadly point in the same direction. The astrologer might say that the moon is relevant here, or that Rahu is relevant here, and the numerologist might say number 5 is relevant here, or number 7 is relevant here. But if they're any good, if the people are any good, they'll be saying basically the same thing, just in different terminology. So actually, there shouldn't be contradiction. What you should find is that the planets will confirm the numbers, and then the choose any other discipline will confirm those as well. They'll confirm each other, and they'll enable you to put together. They'll enable you to head in the right direction. But you're right, because more data, more delusions. If you seek out lots of different inputs, then there is a risk that you go too far and you just land up confused. But broadly speaking, if the people are any good, they'll point in the same direction.
Yes. And another question which came to my mind, I think the listeners would want to know this, is that are there any good numbers? Are there any bad numbers?
Well, all the numbers are good and all the numbers are bad, because they have a dual face. They all Janus face. They all have a positive expression and a negative expression. All of them do. There are numbers which are a bit trickier to deal with than others. 11, the number 11 is often spoken about as a highly positive, highly spiritual number. The ancient Greeks, who were doing numerology, the ancient Greeks thought that 11 was a bit of a dodgy number. It was a bit difficult. It was a bit dangerous. It could be a bit dark. It certainly had a sting to it. So, but you could say that for any number, really. You could take any number and you could say, yeah, but it's also this, and say something a bit negative. So, favorability, whether a number is favorable or unfavorable, is really a personal thing. So, for example, the number 6 for me, because of my chart, is sometimes a bit challenging for me. Whereas for somebody else, the number 6 might be brilliant. It might be actually like what they're all about and wonderful, and where they find their joy. So it's a personal thing rather than a general thing.
Is there any incident which you would like to share which shaped your life?
Well, many. How long we got? I suppose the defining one has to be when I met my teacher. So I was 17 years old. I went to a psychic fair in a hotel in England in 1989. And I was drawn to have a tarot reading with this very attractive lady from Liverpool. And I put my name down on her list. And for some reason or another, when it was my turn to have the reading, she'd gone. And I put my name down on her list again. And we went through this a few times. And basically, I never got to have a tarot reading with the woman I intended to have a tarot reading with. Just didn't happen. It should have done, didn't happen. So I'm there, and I looked around the place, and I saw this guy. Big guy, old guy, light blue jumper. And I thought, well, he's obviously been here all the time, but I hadn't seen him before. And then I thought, well, he looks like somebody who knows things. He knows things, I thought to myself. So I sat down and he did my numbers. And he told me that I was number 3. We are all more than one number, but I was dominated by the number 3. And he said that this means that you should be outgoing and confident and communicative and colourful and expressive. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm not any of those things. I was very shy, 17-year-old. And he said, yes, but that's the problem, isn't it? And I realised then that he was telling me of like what I could be, and I wasn't that. And of course that had me hooked. And then we stayed in touch and I became a student, and that was 1989, and that carried on for 20 years until he died in 2010. I wouldn't be alive really if it wasn't for him. I certainly wouldn't have found my way if it wasn't for him. We didn't always get on. I disagreed with him. I argued with him a lot. But yeah, it was a pivotal event and he was a pivotal person in my life, no doubt about it.
Can you give us an example where you might have used numerology or numbers in your personal life? As someone who knows so much about it, how did you implement it in a certain incident or some place where it helped a lot?
Well, that's very difficult because, so somebody said to me once, it was about 2010 actually, when they said this to me. They said, yes, numerology, very interesting, they said. But you don't run your life by it, do you? They said, like laughing. Ha ha ha. You don't run your life by it, do you? But I do run my life by it. And I did run my life by it. And I didn't have the confidence to say the proper answer to him then. But I do run my life by it. And I have run my life by it for a long time. A long time now. So to give one instance, it's just like, it's so many, because it's always, I mean, back in the day, a long, long, long time ago, I would choose dates to have work meetings on, according to the numerology of the day. I would choose girls to ask out for a date on their numerology. I would choose days to go on holiday, flights to take, seats to book on an airline. I'll do that now. According to numerology, it would be more relevant to say, when do I not use it? When have I not used it? I've used it. I mean, don't do this. This is a bad admission, really, but I have used it. I did use it in the past to select stock market investments, and it was very, very successful until I got greedy and it wasn't. But that wasn't the fault of the numbers. That was my fault. So I've used it for everything, everywhere since the 90s, the early 90s.
What is something which is very close to your heart, or what is something you're passionate about other than numerology?
Okay, so to me, numerology is a tool, but it's not a philosophy or an approach to life. I mean, it can be, but to me it's not, because there's a deeper philosophy that I hold to, which is uniqueness. So although there are all these numbers which describe you and describe me and describe what we're doing here and describe every situation in the world, it is also true that every person and every situation in the world is different. And this has been my main thing of my life, really, to operate, to go through life and to treat people and situations as if they are unique and one-off. So, and it might sound like the most obvious thing in the world, but I have watched, certainly the past 20 years, if not more, where people have been thinking about this less and less. The idea of uniqueness has become less and less interesting to people, less and less popular. But to me, it's the foundation of everything. So all my moves through life, although numerology makes it sound like I'm moving through life in a kind of programmed way, I'm not. Every situation is different. Every person is different. Every day is different, like profoundly different, not just a little bit different, profoundly. And I approach life in that way. There's never two people the same. There's never two situations that are the same. And it's about finding the magic in that. That's kind of like that's the way I live. So that's what interests me, the uniqueness of people, the way that people are different.
Who has been the most influential person in your life and how have they impacted you? I know you talked about your mentor.
It's got to be Arthur. Yeah, it's got to be my teacher, my mentor Arthur. It has to be. There have been others. There's no doubt about it. And in hindsight, particularly when I used to have an ordinary job, I didn't do this full time, during the 90s when I had an ordinary job and an ordinary career, some of the people that I met during that time, even though I didn't get on with them really very well, didn't like them, they were very influential. And I realized later that they were actually trying to help me. I thought they were trying to just get in my way, but actually they were trying to help me. So some employers that I had, some bosses that I had in the 90s, I hated them at the time, but actually turned out that they were only trying to help me.
I wanted to ask another question and go off on a tangent because I try to imagine how the listeners think when they hear interviews. And I know that when they see the word numerology, people are going to want to think about angel numbers. And I see numbers and I see 1111 and I see 444 and 333. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
I can, but I won't deliberately be this, but what I will say will be controversial. Well, I hope not deliberately, but I think so. When you study numerology, if you study it in depth, bear in mind that the ancient Greeks were doing it 2,500 years ago. The Babylonians were doing it 3,000 years ago. It was definitely being done in the Vedic culture. So we're talking 3,000 and more years ago. Egypt is not so much because Egypt had hieroglyphics. So numerology in ancient Egypt is a bit more shaky. But numerology has been in our culture, East and West, for a long, long time. The Middle Ages, even in the Bible. There's a lot of numerology in the Bible, numerological interpretations. The Catholic Church even, I'm not Catholic, but the Catholic Church accepts that that numerology is a thing. Islam accepts that numerology is a thing. It doesn't really like it, but it accepts that it's a thing. Nowhere in the history of numerology, apart from the last 15, 20 years, do you see anything about angel numbers. 1111, 111, 1111, 222, 444. It's a modern invention. It's a modern invention, and it's a marketing invention. It was invented in a publishing company to make numerology more popular. I shouldn't complain. I'm not complaining because it has done that. It has made numerology more popular. It is the in, and there is something to it. There is something to it. But it is the starter before the starter, before the starter, before the main menu. It is interesting as an in. It shows you that numbers are energy and that energies are around us in the world. But it's like the first 0.0001% of the subject. And there is so much more richness underneath it. And so anybody that's spotting these angel numbers, I would say it's a sign to get your numbers done properly. By me, not necessarily by me, but however you want to do it, because it's just the intro.
Thank you for clarifying this, Richard, because I've been one of those people, and I'm admitting it but I felt I was in a certain phase in life. I was in so much pain that I woke up in the middle of the night and seeing 333 would give me hope. that some magic is going to come along my way. But I think gives me a lot more clarity as you say this, that I was one of those two who was just being called to go deeper into all of these things. So I really wanted you to talk about this because I see other people and people in my life who do that a lot now when, oh, this number popped up and I recognize that it's a call to go deeper.
That's exactly it, Summer. Anything which gives us hope, which keeps us going, enables us to keep going, is of value. Anything that enables us to keep going is of value, but it only enables us to keep going so that we go deeper.
Yes.
And that's what I'm interested in.
Is there any advice you would give your younger self looking back at your life now?
I mean, yes, it would relate to my numbers, but it might be a general thing as well. I would say to my younger self that it doesn't matter what people think or say. It doesn't matter what they think or say. You got to do what you got to do, and you got to say what you got to say. And whether people like it or whether they don't like it, or whether they mock it or whether they ignore it, both of those, whether they mock it or ignore it, is of no consequence at all. I know that now. I've known it for a few years. I didn't know it when I was 18 or 20 or even 28, probably. I thought that it mattered to get people on side, to get people to agree with you. It mattered if people agreed with you. And if they didn't agree with you, you must be wrong in some way. It might be that they're wrong. It might be that nobody's right. Nobody's wrong, but you've got to say it. You've got to say your piece. Even if you later on look back and say, oh, I was wrong, it's still important for you to have said your piece and being yourself at the time.
What do you feel the purpose of life is for you? Or in other words, what do you feel is your personal quest in life?
Yeah. Well, numerology and associated topics came for me. I didn't come for them. They came for me. So, and a lot of things in my life have been like that. A lot of things came for me. A lot of situations came for me. I never searched them out. And it seems now that I'm being nudged towards doing something about the situation of the world. I mean, not a very small task. But it just seems like it won't leave me alone. Well, it won't leave me alone. So I don't know precisely what that looks like, but it looks like doing something or saying something or writing something about the situation of the world as it relates to spiritual matters. I mean, I'm not the only one who would be doing that at all, but that seems to be something that's important to me.
Is there any book, quote, or philosophy that has changed your outlook on life?
Well, many. I mean, you can't see what's around us. What's around us is about 1,000 books, more than that probably. There's been many. There's been many, many books which I read and reread. Actually, I would say that it is important to read. If you're going to read, I think you should read old stuff. Define old, over 100 years old, because I don't buy the idea that we know more now than we did then. I think in all sorts of ways, we knew more then than we know now, particularly when it comes to spiritual matters, philosophical matters. I think we knew a lot more then, and we've lost a lot. In certain ways we know more, but in a lot of ways we know less. For me, it won't be a revelation for some people, but for me, the thing which changed a lot of the way that I look at life was when I discovered that Christianity was bigger than the Bible. So I'm not a Christian at all, but Christianity is more than the Bible. You've got the Gnostic Gospels, Gospel of Judas, Gospel of Thomas. You've got the Dead Sea Scrolls. And when you get into all that stuff, puts a completely different spin on the whole story of Christianity and the West and things like that. It's a different Jesus in the Gnostic Gospels is a different Jesus than you see in the Bible. And church becomes a different thing. The whole thing becomes different. And like I said, I'm not Christian, but to me, I didn't discover it. It was already out there. But once I came across it, it was a big eye-opener for me.
And I often think that over thousands of years, the information which keeps passing down, it does change, and it is misinterpreted a lot.
It's misinterpreted and bits are chopped out. And, why are they chopped out? We can speculate, but we know in our own times that narratives are crafted to assist power dynamics. We know that. I mean, we know that's true now. There's no reason to suppose it wasn't true in the past. It must have been true in the past. And okay, if you're going to reject the Bible and you're going to read the Gnostic texts instead, well, who's to say that they're right? I'm not saying that. I'm saying add them in and then you get a bigger picture. That's to me what it's all about.
In a certain light, I get the sense that your approach is a little classical. Correct me if I'm wrong, but for example, I'm an artist and my style is, for lack of a better word, I don't want to go into depth into that right now, abstract. And I don't really agree with the word abstract, but someone who's a realistic painter or someone who paints perfect portraits would look at my art and call it just random strokes. I look at some contemporary art and I have a hard time accepting it as art. But I see that progression from the very Renaissance to today where there's no form, that the previous style has a hard time accepting the next style, if I'm explaining it correctly. But I often think about it that the progression of how the brain is changing, our evolution is changing. And I try to accept someone who's drawing figures, not understanding my art. And I don't try to explain it to them, but I try to understand that space where there's non-acceptance. So my question would be, I know I went a little abstract myself, but my question would be this, that as time progresses and as we are evolving as human beings, the styles and like I asked you about angel numbers and the systems and the ways of thinking, won't they evolve and change into different things? And some of the things, I know these days we are losing the right and wrong, and there should be no black or white, and that it's increasing a lot. So sometimes I feel like, then what's the truth? Because truth is getting subjective. But I wanted to know your thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying that I have the answer here, but I'm a strange mixture of East and West in a way, in my views, because on one hand, I think that Plato was very wise. I mean, that gets a bit deep already, but the Plato idea that we're living down here in this physical form, but somewhere up, in inverted commas, up there's the pure form of us. So somewhere up there, there's the pure Summer, and somewhere up there is the pure Richard, who's a bit abstract, but it's just like perfection is up there, and we're down here, and we're not perfection. So that's the Western classical Plato bit that I buy into. I'm also, having studied it, I think I do buy into the whole Eastern Kali Yuga idea, where actually we're not progressing really at all. In fact, if anything, things just kind of go down and down, down, down until they all come to a head. That's a massive subject in itself. None of it, to me, though, is cause for depression or negativity or like pessimism, because what it means is that we are moving forward, just in a different way than a lot of people think. things clearly weren't better in the past. I don't mean that life was better in the past. I just mean that the ideas were purer. The ideas, not the people. The ideas were clearer. And I think in the modern world, in the Kali Yuga idea, the ideas become more confused, and hence life becomes more difficult. It's a mashup. I'm a mashup of East and West, and I'd have to write it down to explain it fully, really.
How would you describe your teaching philosophy or approach? I know you talked about that, but that's the next question. I think it comes at a very apt time.
Well, it's rooted to go back. It's rooted in uniqueness. Everybody is different, and it's so crucial, and it seems like it's obvious, but there's so many people who it's not obvious. They don't. If you know that you're unique, not better, just different. So if you know you're unique, then you know that you don't have to fit in. It's okay not to fit in. It's okay not to go on that track or in that way. And I see it all the time in consultations that I have. Consultations every day with people all over the world, all different cultures, all over the place. It's the same problem. So many problems come from people trying to put their square peg in a round hole. So many problems come from people trying to be something that they're not. And why are they trying to be it? Because parents told them, society told them, teachers told them, whoever told them. And if you could buy into the uniqueness idea that everybody's different, everybody's got their own way, everybody's got their own path, then so much of that anxiety and problems can be swept away. That's my philosophy. That's my basic philosophy. And numerology is a tool in order to do that.
Thank you. I think I experienced that after I got a little bit more knowledge about numerology from you, because I feel I was telling myself I'm someone else, although I was feeling like someone else. And when I saw that my numbers picture, it almost gave me a little bit of a wake-up call, which gave me relief. That what I felt inside was exactly how I needed to be, and not put up that front, which my brain told me was a strong, better front.
And you wouldn't be alone. I mean, this is so prevalent now. It's so much more prevalent now than when I started to do this 20, 30 years ago. Well, it's so much more prevalent now, where people are under so much pressure to conform to a type, and it just doesn't work. It creates misery, illness, dis-ease. Terrible.
And from that came the question, like, for example, in my case, with my name being Summer, and I know people will get more into it after listening to the interview, and me being a one and thinking I was someone else. So I'm sure people who are listening are thinking in terms of names, that if such a situation comes up, how does a person address? Is changing your name recommended?
It can be done, and I have done it with people. But if you're going to change your name, you've got to. It is best looked at through the lens of saying your name is not who you really are. Your name is just the clothes that you wear. It's not it's not your real identity. Okay, Taylor Swift, top of my head. The Taylor Swift that we see, that is not Taylor Swift. I don't mean anything conspiratorial or freaky. I mean that the energy that emanates from the name, the identity, Taylor Swift, is not the soul that is inside. And that's the important thing to see. So she's just an example. It's the name is not who you are. It is not your real self. It is the clothes that you wear. And maybe those clothes are appropriate, or maybe they're not appropriate. Maybe you would want to wear, maybe you would not want to wear a fur coat on the beach or a swimsuit in the Arctic. That's what I mean. So if you're going to change your name, it's only if the name energy is so off from what you're trying to do that you would change it to get it more in sync. But whatever you change it to, it's not who you really are. Prince knew this. If we remember, go back in the day, the artist formerly known as, where Prince Rogers Nelson called himself Symbol for a while. He was trying to break out of the idea of you had a name and that was your identity. Back a few years ago.
Although I've personally noticed in my own life, and it made a difference because I added on my middle name later on. My mother's name, I added it on legally as my middle name. And I think that changed a lot of things about my personality. And I know you're talking about the persona, but it did change me for the better. I would feel like I started attracting all those qualities which were in her because I think that energy got added to mine.
Wearing different clothes generates different effects. No doubt about it. It's important, but it's still only clothes.
Thank you, Richard. This is so interesting. I could hear a lot more about it. I'm sure people would be very fascinated too. If it were an ideal world, what does that look like in your eyes?
Well, there's many things. I would say the ideal world would be a freer world than we have now. I don't think really that we are very free as human beings. Varies from society to society, country to country. It varies on what your social position is. Although, having had a number of wealthy clients over the years, I'm not convinced that they're any freer than the person that hasn't got any money. And arguably, the person that's got no money might actually be even freer than the rich person. And it varies through history. But I don't think that human beings, generally speaking, are free. And I think that's the cause of a lot of problems. There are problems with freedom. Freedom can be misused. Freedom can be selfishly used. But we're not free. And we're getting less free. And I think that's a big problem. I think a better world would be where more of us were more free.
What is something that you would like the world to know about you, which you feel is often misunderstood?
I don't know how to answer that, really. Everybody sees me differently. Because everybody sees you differently. Because, person watching, listening at home, everybody sees you differently as well. Each person sees you differently. The interaction is different each time. So somebody will see me as saying dangerous and radical things, and they'll hear that and they'll take that away. But somebody else will say, well, he's very, very staid and small c conservative and very traditional and very old fashioned. And both of those things, well, neither of them are really true, but so I'm being misunderstood all the time, but everybody is to some extent.
Yes. I
don't know how I would correct that because people can only hear what they can hear. You know, if the bit about I did a talk once many years ago, 10 plus years ago, and I said at the start of the talk or during the talk, I said I wasn't. Russell Brand had been in the news. Everybody knows who Russell Brand is. Russell Brand had been in the news, and I said I didn't much like Russell Brand because I knew a little bit about him. I didn't much like him. I never met him, don't know his person, but I heard things I wasn't keen. And then we moved on. And then somebody came up to me at the end of the talk and they said, I agree with you, Richard, I agree with you. I love Russell Brand as well. I'd said that I didn't like him. She'd heard that I liked him. And that's a silly example, but it's not, she didn't mishear. She took what she needed to take.
Yes.
As everybody always does. So I'm happy to be a million different things to a million different people, I suppose is the answer.
Thank you. That's very well put. From your entire journey in life so far, what would you like to share with our listeners which you feel would be helpful to them?
Well, I've said about uniqueness and I've said about freedom. One of the big things I've learned over the years of spiritual matters is that our feelings, our emotions are very important. That's not very radical, but that we shouldn't always listen to them. I'm not saying that our feelings are always wrong. I'm saying that they can be wrong. And everybody knows this really. You can be absolutely convinced in your feelings, not through the logical mind, but in your gut that a certain thing is a certain way. You can be absolutely convinced about it. And then 5 seconds later, you realise it wasn't what you felt it was. Nothing's changed. It is what it always was. It's just that your feelings were wrong. They got it wrong. And now your feelings have got it right. Feelings give you new information, as somebody said to me once. They give you your feelings, your vibe, gives you new information about things. But it's not always right. And I honestly think, and I say this from experience of dealing with many, many, many people, a life run only by the feelings is a disaster zone. A life run only by the mind is cold and maybe even a bit cruel. But a life run only by feelings is a catastrophe waiting to happen. It's got to be both. We've got to do both. That's the key. Not easy, but that's the key to it.
Thank you so much, Richard. I said it in the last interview I recorded. It's not out yet, that I tried to take one message out of each interview which I feel is coming from me. And I think that one was for me from your interview. So I'm very thankful you said it. Right. And that was my last question. If there's anything else, anything you would like to mention or say about numerology or anything else?
Well, I mean, get your numbers done by me or anybody else. Don't get your numbers done by AI. Don't get ChatGPT to do your numbers. That's not the way. It doesn't know. We know all this. Large language models, very interesting. It's going to change a lot of things. Very valuable in certain ways. But numerology has an intuitive dimension. There is an intuitive dimension to it. It can't be done properly by computerization, by technology. The intuitive factor is not there. You will get a cold reading. You need it done by a human being if you're going to get it done.
And I would like to add this, that I personally took a class with Richard and it was very life-changing. It helped me find more acceptance, and that acceptance helped me find more peace, which is one of my quests in life. So numerology, in essence, brought me more peace and took me towards myself. So I recommend Richard, and I'll put the information down below the video. So thank you for coming today, Richard. This was my honor, and I look forward to the interview coming out.
Well, most kind, Summer. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.